Hello, Chris Fluke here, Chris Fluke Podcast, episode 54. Man, we had a good month here. Today I think is April 1. So this episode here is going to be a recap of March, man. I just had a bunch of kids in here. The amount of work the kids could, these kids were anywhere between 8 and 13. There were 7 of them. The amount of work that young kids could get in, it's like a week's worth of workout reps. They hammer it out an hour and they walk out of here and like go to baseball, go to swim, whatever it may be. It always astonishes me. Today, for example, 7 kids between the ages of 8 and like 13, we'll say. 1,000 push-ups, 20 rope climbs, 700 squats, 350 ball slams, 350 box jumps, 200 chin-ups. And then the finisher was rope waves and jump rope. We had to get to 2,000. Every rep counts. Everybody does some work. That took like 6 to 8 minutes. See you later, guys. With 1 minute to spare, they finish all this stuff in an hour. Some of these kids are going to baseball. Some of them have karate. Some of them are going to swimming, soccer, whatever it may be. And they just walk out of here like it's nothing. If I did something like this, man, I might be crippled for a few days after that. But anyhow, it's April 1. What does that mean if you live in Pennsylvania? 70-degree day, 40 degrees and windy. We had a little snowfall this morning somehow. Tomorrow's going to be a high of 39. The next day is going to be high in the 50s. Totally unpredictable. We're getting hammered with rain, then we're not. Sunshine, more rain, all that. Repeat, all over again, man. Spring sports in Pennsylvania, man, are total cluster. You know what I'm about to say, the F word that comes after that. And it's kind of affecting what we're doing here today. I'm all pumped up. Sun's going to be out. Bunch of kids coming. We're going outside. Windstorm up here, man. I feel like this barn. Every time I'm in here and it's windy like this, I'm thinking to myself, I just keep those fingers crossed and hope a piece of siding doesn't fly off, the doors rattle and blow off or something, man. Always a little bit worried. So let's hope we make it through this podcast. Now, what I've been up to, that's this first block here. And then we're going to hit a Q&A. And then we might have a little special section at the end here, but it's all going to be about time, man. We're going to see what kind of time we got for this. So what I've been up to, if you go back these past couple months, I'm trying to implement this 4-3-2-1 weight loss plan. This is primarily for me, right? I mean, something crazy like 40% of people gained weight. Man, gain a considerable amount of weight. I'm not talking about a pound since COVID happened. I'm talking about 10 plus, 20 plus pounds. 38%, 40%, something like that. All right? I'm only repeating what I heard, so fact check me, please, and let me know what the real number is. Anyhow, COVID happens, right? Comorbidities, high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, overweight, obese. I saw a number from the CDC. It was like, say, 80% of the people were overweight or obese that were hospitalized. If I look at myself, I fall into that overweight category for being 5'7" and some change, and I was weighing 195 pounds at the new year. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe my frame, I can afford to drop some lbs here, get a little bit leaner. So what did I decide? I was going to lose 10 pounds over the course of 4 months. How was I doing it? 4 pounds month 1. Check. Did that. 3 pounds month 2. Check. Did that. 2 pounds month 3. Fail. I only lost a pound this month. In theory, though, I lost 8 since the new year. I'm going to drop 2 in the month of April. Hit my goal weight of 185. In addition to that, the 4-3-2-1 plan, I wanted to get my waist measurement at the belly button to be half of my height. And you don't want to carry belly fat around your waist. I heard somebody say this one time, the closer that fat is to your heart, the more likely that it might be to give you some issues with the respiratory system. You don't want to be carrying belly fat. You don't want that fat, near the heart, near the lungs and all that stuff. If you carry some extra weight in your lower half of your body, okay, fine. But once you got that fat sitting around your belly, it could lead to some issues. You got a lot of stuff in there that, just things like organs, lungs, all that stuff that I already said, right? So the idea would be to get your waist circumference down. Unfortunately, mine was not half. I think I'm a few inches away from being half. Anyhow, I didn't hit my goal, my weight this year or this month, but I did lose a 1/4 inch on the old belly circumference, so I took that as a win. I'm not going to beat myself up. 8 pounds in 3 months so far. I got 1 more month to drop 2, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm also going to get my belly fat down. How am I doing that? I'm doing different workout programs, so I've said this before. I think working out is incredibly important, but I also don't think it's going to be the game-changing thing that's going to lead to getting ripped, rapid fat loss and all this other stuff. I think it's all of the stuff that you do outside of the gym that helps. Sleep, daily activities, good nutrition, period. Not over-consuming calories, and those type of factors. That's what's probably going to make a difference, right? So I've been doing different weightlifting programs. I followed this Lean Made Simple program by Slade Jones. A lot of kettlebell swings, a lot of one-arm presses, a lot of ab wheels, a lot of pull-ups, right? That was a great program. Now I'm messing around with this post-deployment program. Dan John again came out with this thing. What this is doing here is getting me to do things that I would never do before. Week 1, you do 1 set of 25. Week 2, you do 2 sets of 12. Week 3, 3 sets of 8. Week 4, 4 sets of 5. Tomorrow, probably tomorrow, I'm going to be starting the 4 sets of 5. You do that for 3 sessions, and then you reboot and go back to 1 to 25, but you just start a little bit heavier this time through. What is that doing for me? Those sets of 25, those sets of 12, even those sets of 8, those are things I wasn't really doing before. And you're doing exercises, half kneeling presses, you're doing a different pull-up variation. I'm doing these rack pulls that it's kind of like you start the bar either 1 inch above your knee or 1 inch below your knee in a squat rack, and then you just kind of RDL, you explode your hips up, you lift the weight, and then you lower it. And then the other thing I'm doing is overhead squats because I'm absolutely terrible at them. So the squat I chose was the overhead squat, all right? Incredibly humbling for me, especially a guy that was able to do a significant amount of weight, say in a front squat. I place that bar overhead and I look like I've never been in the gym before, which is good. Why is that good? It's great for fat loss because of inefficiency. I'm doing something that I'm absolutely not good at. When you think about fat loss, when you think about being inefficient at something, if you're trying to learn a skill, you want to repeat that skill over and over again so that everything gets hardwired in there and you're able to perform that task with less energy being expended. That's great for learning a skill, but not great for fat loss. You want to be constantly challenging yourself and putting yourself in these funky positions and doing a little bit oddball things that kind of challenge your system and kind of keep you on edge. This is for fat loss, right? Do things that you're not good at. My boy Frank Donnelly used to say, do things that you suck at, basically. So that's what I'm doing with the overhead squat, doing things like 25 reps, 12 reps. After every 3 workouts, you're changing it up, increasing weight, decreasing reps. In addition to that, now this last month, these last 2 pounds I think are going to be tough for me. So on the off days, I'm walking up the road. It's nothing but hills out here where I live, baby, in the Goss. You walk up to this development, and then I run hills. I haven't run in a while. Running hills, I think, is something that I'm going to be able to do over the long haul as long as you keep it repeatable, that in the sense that you don't kill yourself every hill session. So what did I do? Day 1, I ran hills. I did 1 hill. I walked back home. The next day, I woke up feeling fine. Yesterday, I did 2 hills. Walked back home. Today I feel fine. Next time I'm going to do 3 hills. If I get to this point here, every time I do it, I'm going to try to work up to like 6 to 8 hills, right? If I get to a point where I do 5 and I wake up the next day with beat up ankles, Achilles, hamstrings, hip flexors, groin, whatever, I'm probably going to either repeat that number or just decrease the number. I want this to be repeatable. I want this to be challenging, but also to allow full recovery so that I can hit the weights the next day. Are you with me? I don't want to be out of commission for a little bit or a little bit achy going into a strength training session. So I'm slowly building up this hill stuff. My warm-up is walking uphill to the site. I run up the hill a few times, walk home. Simple, right? Easy enough. Now, that is the inefficient thing for me too, because I'm not great at running hills. So you combine the overhead squats, and now you start adding in some hill sprints for this last month, this last push, to get that weight off, to get that waist a little thinner. Fingers crossed, hopefully it goes well for me. And one other thing too, I got to this point where I weighed, 1 pound over, and I had 1 day to make the weight. But I was thinking to myself, I could go old school wrestling style, just go out and go for a jog, come back and make the weight. But then I'm just gonna, dehydrate myself. I don't want to starve myself just to hit a goal weight. I'm in this thing for the long haul. I want to find out a reasonable way to drop weight so that I could apply these concepts to working with other people down the line. I want this 4-3-2-1 plan to be something that I can have other people do. So I'm testing it on myself, and then I will be looking for a test group to try to expand off of this. Now, that being said, I don't want to have those habits where, you go to your Weight Watchers weigh-in and you dehydrate yourself, you lost 2 pounds, woo, and then you drink some water and you're back to where you were before. It's got to be smart and it's got to be sustainable. I think I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Long story short, we're looking to be inefficient. We're looking to challenge yourself with things that you don't always do, and we're looking to be smart with your eating. I follow some time-restricted eating because I seem to overconsume. Skip a meal, cut it short. Right now, your last meal is at 3 o'clock, 2:30. So be it. I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm going to work. I'm going to go and drink some tea, get ready for bed, and then shut it down and hopefully be sleeping an hour or two after the sun goes down. I think that's key as well. Anyhow, post-deployment program. There's this I think his name's Tim Anderson. Original Strength is the book. I read one of his books a few years back. Now we're talking about 7, 8 years ago. Becoming Bulletproof. It's about pressing reset on your body. You're starting at ground zero. You're learning how to crawl. You're doing these different cross-body actions. You're trying to get your body system firing like you were when you were a young kid, learning how to move efficiently and properly. This same man has these original strength moves where, with this post-deployment plan that I'm following, you basically do a mobility exercise, then you do a carry where you're going to do a waiter's walk where you have a weight overhead, walk down and back, then you're going to do your strength exercise. There's 4 exercises that you do. Before all of those, you're going to do a mobility move and then a work capacity move, which is a carry, and then you do the strength move. You repeat for the number of sets, then you move on to the next one, all right, so on and so forth. You keep doing it that way. It's been a total game changer. I've been feeling incredible. My body feels great. You're doing things in the neck where my neck's jacked up, so you're working the neck into the thoracic region, which is that chest region, but your spine on your back, the thoracic spine. And then from there, you're turning a little bit. You're getting a little bit of rotation in that thoracic region. You're working the hip flexors. You're doing these things in the 6-point position, which is really opening up your hips. The 6-point rock and the 6-point nod. You can look that stuff up if you want it. You're doing a lot of different carries, which is going to work the core. You're going to work your posture. It's unilateral in nature. And then you're working these strength moves in there, and it's been an eye-opening experience for me. In addition to those original strength moves, our daughter's in preschool now, and once a week now, Marisa and I will go to the gym. We go to a Planet Fitness right by our daughter's preschool, and I basically call this my weakness day. I do all the moves that I'm not going to do at my home gym here. I'm using the cables and I'm doing things like diagonal chops, diagonal lifts, paddle off presses, different anti-rotation type stuff. I'll do a bird dog plus a row on a bench. I'm doing hip thrusts. I'm doing dead bugs. I'm doing single leg squats, kind of standing on a bench and coming down, tapping my heel and coming up. Or I'm doing the skater squat where you're freestanding. And if you know what a pistol squat is, where you shoot your foot out to the front, the skater's a little bit different in the sense that it's kind of a mixture of a single leg RDL and a single leg squat where your back knee, you're almost doing a reverse lunge, but your back toes aren't going to touch the ground. You're just using one leg, single leg strength the whole time. So you shoot your arms forward, you bend that knee and you touch your back knee to the ground, not your toes, just the knee lightly touches, and then you stand back up. I think people call that a skater squat. Pretty tough single leg strength exercise. Anyhow, Planet Fitness. I'm now able to work in a weakness day. So I got 3 big strength exercise days. I'll run hills once or twice a week. And now I have a day for my weaknesses. Body's been feeling great. I got a little pelvic issue going on here. I've been hammering dead bugs 2 or 3 times a week. I think it's starting to fix it. My dead bug, what I'm doing right now, I'm not doing these elaborate ones. I'm literally starting. I spent 2 weeks in that dead bug position, just taking the arms up overhead. 2 weeks of arms. And then now I'm working on 2 weeks of 1 set of arms and then 1 set of leg. I'm basically just doing 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 12, depending on the day. Try to do that 2 or 3 times a week. Feeling good, man. I'm loving it. So we're doing inefficient exercises. We're working on our weakness. And now we're running hills. Sounds like a good plan. Hopefully I can keep this up. One thing that I did notice, though, by not losing that 2 pounds is I cut out my long walks. Just the schedule now, get my daughter to preschool, cut into my morning walk time. And I think that could have been the game changer. If I was walking still as consistently as I was before, that weight might have came off as my daily activity level would have been risen by a couple hours a week. Now, you're talking about some other things I've been getting into. Reading, man. Love it. Been reading all the time. Last couple books. Coyote America, American Serengeti by Dan Flores. if you want to learn about the history of the animal in North America here, American Serengeti breaks it all down. You learn these incredible things. And then one of the animals in that book is the coyote, and he has a whole book on the coyote and the history and these Native Americans and, a coyote being a deity. These Indian groups kind of pray to their coyote god, so to speak, this old artwork with the coyote, how the coyote adapts. It can live in every state in North America. You find it in Chicago. There was one thing in that book that was like at nighttime in Chicago, every person in the city was going to bed within a 1 mile radius of a coyote. 2,000 plus coyotes in Chicago like 10 years ago. I'm assuming that number expanded. Central Park has coyotes, San Diego, all of these other areas that you think about. The plains, they're here in Pennsylvania. I mean, the coyote is everywhere. Great book. As I'm reading these books, it talks about basically the American Indian, which led me down this path of diving into some books like Empire of the Summer Moon. Great book. I listened to it last year. Sorry, I read it last year. I listened to it this year. Custer Died for Your Sins, another book that I'm reading right now. And basically what that book is about is, it was written in 1960. A guy works for the American Indian Affairs. Basically just talks about, America as a whole. They go and they often forget about what they did to the native people in this country. We're doing all this humanitarian work elsewhere, but we gave the Native Americans, the American Indian, blankets filled with smallpox back in the day. We wiped them out. And this book basically, we try to force them into reservations, things like that. And basically this book title's Custer Died for Your Sins, which is pretty harsh in the sense that you think, if you know about the way that General Custer died, it was kind of a massacre. They were scalping, there was torture, there was all kinds of terrible things that went on to Custer and his troops. And basically what this man is saying, that let's press pause on that. Yes, it might have been barbaric, but let's not forget about what these United States soldiers did to the natives in this country. So now I'm reading that. I got one more book, Flowers of the Summer Moon, I think. The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. That one's coming up next here. Anyhow, animals, Native Americans, American Indians, whatever it may be, that's what I've been getting into. What I've been watching? NCAA wrestling, man. What else? So I can't watch stuff in real time for some reason, man. I just can't. I can't sit down at a set time, man. I have this commitment thing. I don't commit to anything, man. I'm like, maybe. We'll see. I got ESPN Plus that allowed me to watch the replays. Back in the day, I used to watch football on DirecTV. We get the football package. I'd wake up early, put the football game on, make some breakfast, do it like that, right? ESPN Plus, I get a break. Emmy's at preschool. I'm doing stuff around the house. I could put the wrestling on. I could watch it. Sunday night, Emmy goes to bed. Boom, let's turn on the finals. Great storylines. We had a true freshman winning. That same true freshman beat a wrestler that was fifth in the world championships, I believe. We have a man tore his ACL 8 days before the tournament. He wins his third national title. What else happens? Penn State rolling out a young team, going 4 for 4 in the finals. True freshman champs. Local guy from Nazareth had the match. I felt like he had this thing won, and all of a sudden, 32 seconds ago, all hell breaks loose. Incredible sport, though. You hear these post-match interviews. This is the best thing I like about wrestling, in the sense that these guys, man, you can see their personality, and you can see their drive, and you can see their work ethic. One dude's like, 665 deadlift, baby, woo! You got that side of things where you got that ego built up a little bit. Then you got those other guys that just dominate the tournament, and they're just like super humble, and like whatever they did wasn't good enough. They were disappointed. I wish I would have done that. I left a few points out there. I didn't get the turn. I didn't get this. I didn't get that. I wanted bonus points. They're always just striving to want more. And I think down the road that kind of comes back and backfires on them. But these wrestlers, man, I always had this thought now. There's something going on in that brain of theirs, and I think that brain needs to work a little bit differently for wrestlers to be able to beat themselves up in a grind and just keep grinding and be able to achieve these high-level things. And lastly, one thing that I've been listening to. Actually, multiple things, but Jordan Peterson is a guy that I listen to a lot, and Marisa gives me a bunch of shit about it because I kind of cite him, and it's like she could tell me something 100 times, and then I need to get it confirmed just by one other person, and usually that becomes Jordan Peterson. One thing he talked about here is having kids, and right now we're experiencing this, and my first Q&A I'm going to kick off is going to be about this topic here. My daughter just turned 3. The amount of emotion and feelings that these kids that are 2 and 3 years old, they call them the three-nagers, the amount of emotion, the amount of rage that could come out in some of these outbursts of energy is quite admirable. These like tempers, these tantrums, these meltdowns, whatever you want to call it, the amount of fire that comes out of these kids is like out of control. And, after 2 weeks, basically, after 2 weeks of going to school now, our daughter's at this point where she just is like, I don't want to go. She goes, has all kinds of fun, but just to get her to go there, this is the first time ever that she's acted in a way like this. But anyhow, she goes to school, she has all these friends. And what Jordan Peterson was talking about, number one, the amount of rage that these young kids have is admirable. I totally agree with him. Number two, you got to draw the line somewhere. And we compromise, we make deals. You do this, how about this? I'll work with you on this a little bit. We try to nudge her to make the right decision on her own. But at some point here, this is the first time really that there's been a battle. So we had to draw the line. And it comes down to this. It's like, you want to have these feelings? That's fine. You're allowed to feel that way. But I'm not changing my mind. And I will sit here and I will wait. And if you want to roll around on the living room carpet letting me know that I shouldn't be saying this to you or doing that, that's fine. And if you do it for 8 minutes, cool. Next time, let's try to redirect that energy here and try to get that tantrum, those emotions regulated in 6 minutes, then maybe it's 3 minutes, and then maybe it's 1 minute. You got to ride this thing out as a parent. I just had this moment of just learning this somewhat recently, and it hasn't been easy. But one thing that made me smile was Jordan Peterson talked about this study where, let's just say they put rats, I don't know where this research was done, but there's a big rat and a little rat, and these two rats are playing together, right? If that big rat doesn't let the little rat win and get the better of him while they're playing whatever game these rats were doing, that little rat will not play with that big rat. And it came down to like 30 to 40%, somewhere in that range. I don't remember the percentage exactly, but if that big rat didn't let the little guy win 30 to 40% of the time, that little rat wouldn't play. If the little rat doesn't play, the big rat doesn't play. So the big rat is like, hey, I got to give a little bit if I want to play. You think about that with kids. You don't want to be that kid that nobody wants to play with, right? And as I'm thinking, you don't want to be the kid that the parents don't like having you around. You don't want that kid. And I had this moment this week, our daughter's giving us all kinds of time, giving us a tough time. She comes skipping out of school, super happy. Didn't want to go there initially. She's skipping. She's waiting for her little buddy to come out. And her little buddy's mom was like, oh, my God, my daughter loves her. She named one of her toys after her, blah, blah, blah. So a friend of hers has a toy named Emmy after my daughter. And then we get these wonderful messages from my teacher, anybody that ever watches her, friends, family, whatever. They just talk about how wonderful she is, how happy she is, how she plays with everybody. And basically, she's that one rat, that big rat. I don't want to compare my daughter to a rat, but she's that kid that people want around. They like having her around. She tries to be super helpful. And when, you get these messages, it kind of makes you realize that, hey, we might have these meltdowns, we might have some tantrums, we might have some battles, but at least that you're trying to get your daughter, you're trying to get your child to be that kid that other people want to play with. And I think that's going to be, she's going to be able to win at life if she could be that person that others like having around, that others like to work with, that others like to communicate with. Life's a tournament of games. You want to be in as many games as possible, and the only way that you could be in as many games as possible is if you work well with others, if you're willing to compete, if you're going to be a good sport, if you're not going to treat people unfairly, things like that. That is my goal as a parent. That is what Jordan Peterson talked about, and I'm really just hoping that my daughter continues to be that kind of person. Now, when we talked about these kids and these meltdowns, we have a friend that they're experiencing the same thing. And it's like, what do you do? And before I was a parent, it came down, this is the Q&A section. Now we're talking about parenting one time here. Well, 2 times technically. Earlier, the Jordan Peterson. Now we're talking about what to do if your kid melts down. Before I had a kid, I'm like, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I'm not going to allow this. She's going. I don't care what she says. But then you have a kid, and you realize that there's going to be some give and take. You got to give a little bit. If you just have to. You can't just be black and white all the time. And we operated in some gray area. We were a little bit flexible. We ran into an issue 2 weeks ago. Hey, didn't want to go to gymnastics. She wasn't enjoying it. Wanted a break from it. We just started back up. First time went good. Second time not so good. So the third week we were like, hey, if she says she doesn't want to go, let's actually listen to her this time. Let's not do it. What did we do there? We might have planted a seed for her to say, I don't want to go somewhere. And then we said yes. So we might have made a mistake there. Anyhow, what do you do if your kid doesn't want to go to school? Back in the day, I was this firm black and white guy. No chance. Then you have a kid and you start to operate in the gray area. Right now, I'm circling back to this black and white thing. A lot of times, we're able to give our daughter a choice. Do you want to do A or B? Hopefully she chooses what you want her to choose. You kind of nudge her that way, right? But when it comes to going to school, there is no B. It's only A, and we have to do it. And we went there that one day, and that teacher, we're like, hey, Marisa said, hey, what do you do in these situations? And the teacher's like, I know exactly what to do. And we were like, okay. I'll take her by her hand. I will walk her in the class, and you guys leave. Our daughter freaked out. They didn't want to do that, but that's what she did. We get a message 2 minutes later, and she's playing with her little buddy in there, and crying is over, meltdown's over. I'm grateful that that teacher said that, because if that teacher would have said, like, well, maybe you could go home, try it another week, try again tomorrow, we would have been planting this seed of allowing her to act in a certain way that the tantrum will get you out of doing something. Luckily, the school that we're at, this teacher said that to us because we're new parents, and we were kind of at a loss, so we were looking for some advice and some help. And she gave us that advice, and it was very helpful. So what do you do if you're a parent and your kid doesn't want to do something? How do you transition to those classes that, parents aren't allowed in a lot of stuff when you have a 3-year-old now? It's like, hey, we did gymnastics at age 2, or you did tumble time, or you did a library event at age 2. Now at age 3, like gymnastics, for example, you go, you walk the kid in the room, and then you sit out in the lobby, and you could watch on the television what's going on. And if there's an emergency, kid has to go to the bathroom, kid freaks out, kid gets hurt, your parents out there, they just come in and get you. Okay? When they turn 3, man, it's a whole nother ball game. And it's tough, but yeah, I think you need to be black and white on that front. So parents, to say the same thing 900 times, there's going to be a time where there is no wiggle room. And it's okay. Just be strong. You'll get through it. At least I hope so. Anyhow, moving on. Another man approaching the age of 50 wants to get rid of his belly. Now, this dude's in pretty good shape. I always worry about this, man. You talked about this stuff. He's a taller guy. He's probably lean. He thinks the belly's going to affect his back, so on and so forth. It could be, especially if you got a bad back. Maybe trimming down a little bit is going to be helpful for a variety of reasons. What do I say if you got a belly on you? Keep up with the strength training. Change up what you're eating. See what you're doing, man. If there's a bunch of beers in there and you want to lose your belly, I don't want to say I don't have sympathy for you, but what's your main goal, man? Do you want to enjoy some beers on the weekend? Do you want to, do you want those extra calories that you might not need? That's fine, but you just might not be as lean as you want to be, okay? There's always a give and a take with everything, all right? You got to give a little bit to get a little bit. If you want to get that 6-pack, maybe put down the 6-pack. You catch my drift? So, you want to trim down the belly, same stuff. Sleep better, talk to people, have some people in your life, go for walks, get your daily activity level up, and get rid of some of those extra calories that you might not necessarily need. Now, on the flip side of that, we have a woman of about the same age that's trying to put on some weight, man. Trying to pack on weight. Now, I never had an issue to do this. I could go inside right now and put on 5 to 8 pounds in a hurry. This woman's the opposite, man. She's about 20 pounds down from what she was in high school, has 3 kids. She's been doing some endurance running, so one thing we're doing now, let's cut back on the running a little bit. Running comes down, strength training comes up. Next thing, calories. We got to get her calorie intake up. What's the quickest, easiest way that you could get your calorie intake up? I think you could drink calories. So if you're trying to decrease your body weight, cut out some of those liquid calories, so to speak, whether it's beer, shakes, whatever it may be. Cut that out. If you're trying to gain weight, add some of that in, not alcohol, but maybe add a protein shake, man. If you could drink a shake, if you could get a high-calorie milk like almond milk or coconut milk, or get some of that coconut cream out of a can, plop that coconut cream. Dude, not only will it taste great, It's got some high fat content. What does that mean? High calorie content, all right? So if you could get your calories up, man, get some of that coconut cream, put it in there. Get some peanut butter, get it in there. Throw a little bit of banana in there. Why don't you throw a little bit of protein powder in there? These are the kind of things that are going to get your calorie intake up. That's what I would recommend doing, right? If that doesn't work, maybe you're not absorbing calories in the way that you should be, and you might want to go see a doctor and try to get some information out of that, because if you could take in all the calories you want, but if you don't absorb them for whatever reason it may be, you're going to have to figure out what's going on there, number one. And I might not be the guy to give you that answer, but maybe you go and you see a specialist and you try to get some answers that way. That's probably the best idea. Somebody that has like colitis, Crohn's, whatever, they eat certain foods, they might not absorb the nutrients in it, they might excrete those nutrients, and they suffer to sustain and put on weight, right? So that's always an option too. One, try to get the calories up. If you're getting the calories up and things aren't working, maybe you go and see a doctor and that doctor will refer you to a specialist. But keep that in mind. Pursue a specialist, because doctors, man, they got their hands full with just about everything going on right now, and it's hard for them to stay up to date on all these nutrition things that are going on in the world. Talk to your doctor. Try to get referred out. I'd be very hesitant, be very careful to seeing some local, nutrition expert, so to speak, or somebody that works at the health food shop, or somebody that's making shakes at the local smoothie bar. Okay, go see somebody that knows what the heck they're talking about with a good background in this stuff. All right. Next thing, Jimmy. Oh yeah, man, asked me what's a good age to start working out. Now we touched on this before, man. I'll take any and all comers, man. 5, 6, 7, 8, doesn't matter. You'll come in here and we'll do age appropriate things. Now when it comes to weight training, I'm thinking it's about 11-ish, but kids mature at different rates. You might have that kid that's 12 or 11. Or that 10, no, let's go with that 10-year-old boy that you can see a little bit of a mustache coming in already. I don't know if they're out there in the world, but they probably are. That little dude that's got the hair coming in a little bit on the old mustache. This kid might be pumping some testosterone through the body. Let's get him pumping some iron. Well, you just get that girl too that is, matures faster than the others. There's a 10 or 11-year-old girl that's in here lifting weights, doing the same stuff that her mom does because she can handle it. She's a tough girl. She's a strong girl. She's physically mature enough to do it, so we do it, right? There's also, 11-year-olds that have no business doing any kind of weights yet. So when it comes to the weight training stuff, you got to use your good judgment. We do the GPP that I spoke about a few podcasts ago. Gym class on steroids, basically. Run, jump, climb, push, throw, jump rope, teach the kettlebell deadlift, teach different stuff, teach rolling, tumbling, things like that. I mean, that's like a lost art. I had a kid in here trying to do a forward roll, man. Awful forward rolls this week. One girl couldn't do, two people couldn't do one. They're like 10 years old. They couldn't do a roll. And I'm like, wait a second. What is going on here? We're missing something. So guess what we're doing now with all the young bucks? We're tumbling, man. We're doing a little bit of rolls. We're doing a few backwards rolls, and we're messing around with cartwheels. That's it. I'm no expert, so we're not getting super crazy, super technical with it, but that's what we're trying to work on a little bit. Why? Why does it matter if you could do a roll, right? Because you learn how to absorb and kind of brace on contact with the ground. Let's say you get knocked over hard. If you practice like shoulder rolls, if you practice forward rolls and you get hammered in a game, you go down, you'll go with it a little bit. You'll go with it. You won't hit the ground like, a bag of rocks. You'll roll with it. You'll get to your feet and you'll go pursue the play. If you learn how to get to the ground and get back up safely, you do that stuff in training. It's going to work. It's going to help you out when you're older, when you're later in life. Wrestling, things like that. I'm still able to do forward rolls, above average cartwheels, and I never do them. I'll do them once every 3 years. But if I have to do them, I'm somewhat capable of doing it. Why? Because I did this stuff growing up. Same with jumping rope, things like that, man. We got to prepare our kids the same way that we were prepared decades ago. So we got to tumble. So what's a good age to start? Jimmy, you got a 7-year-old girl. She could come in here. She could do some throws. She could throw a medicine ball off the ground. She could do a chest pass with a medicine ball off a wall. She could jump. She could try to climb our rope. She could jump rope. She could do some ladder drills. She could jump over a hurdle. She could hold a push-up position. These are things that we could do. Kids are already doing this stuff. Go to the playground, man. You see those maniac kids that are like 8? They're running, jumping, monkey bars, doing who knows what. if you're worried about joints, if you're worried about kids getting hurt or gross, stunning their growth, then keep them out of the parks, man. Keep them out of the gym. Keep them out of playing sports, because every time a kid runs, man, the amount of force that they put on their body is significantly more than what they get in the gym. So don't have that mindset that like, hey, I don't want my kid to work out. Your kid could work out and it won't stunt their growth. Your kid could work out and they could learn a lot at the age of 6, 7, 8. You just have to have the right coach, the right person in there that is doing appropriate stuff. Next one. Jen. She said, okay, I'm ready to go. I need to start hitting my pull-ups again. What do? I said, hey, first things first. Hang from the bar, 4 sets, 30 seconds, arms straight. All right, if you could get to that you hit that magic 2-minute mark, you're good to go. Let's start practicing some bent arm hangs. Let's try to work up to 4 sets, 30 seconds of the bent arm hang. Not an easy thing to do now. You work up to that. You're ready to do some negatives. Start at the top. Come down slow. If you could do 5-second lowerings, if you could do 5 to 10 of those start with 5. Start with 5-second lowerings. Eventually we're going to build up to 10. Once you get to 10, jump, pull yourself up. If you're not able to do that, elevate your feet a little bit. Make yourself a little bit taller. I have a bumper plate that's, 4 inches, we'll say. We'll go with 4 inches. Or 3.5 we'll go with. Then I have a 6-inch box. I have a 6-inch box plus a bumper plate. We could build you up to be a little bit taller. You jump from a height and pull yourself up. Hold at the top, come down slow. Eventually we make you shorter and shorter until you're doing a full range of motion pull-up. That's kind of how I progressed it, all right? Straight arm hangs, chin up isometric holds where your chin above the bar. Work up to 2 minutes in each of those. Once you work up to 2 minutes in the straight arm hang, you do the chin up iso hold. After that, you're doing eccentric chin ups. Start at the top, take a 5 count to lower your body. You do 5 sets of that, good job. Next time, do 6 sets of that. Next time, do 7 reps of that, all right? Next time 8, next time 9, next time 10. You do 10 total over the course of a workout. You're ready to move on to the jumping chin-ups. After you do your jumping chin-ups, you eventually will progress yourself to dead hang chin-ups. This could take a year. This could take longer than a year. I had somebody talk about the rope. A young girl might be 9 years old. It took her months just to get across this little monkey bar rig I got set up out here. But she did it, right? And now she's looking at the rope that I have in here. She got 2/3 the other day. Now I'm like, hey girl, you know what? It might take you another 4 weeks. 4 months, not 4 weeks. It might take you 4 months of practice. She comes once a week. It might take you 4 months to get to that top. And what this little girl's learning is that things just don't come like that at the snap of the fingers. Things take work. Things take time. And you got to be able to put in that time. And you got to be able to put in that work if you want to accomplish great things. I think it's a wonderful lesson that this girl's getting at such a young age. I said that to her. Did she have any idea what I was talking about? Maybe not. I think one day it's going to click, and one day she's going to realize that at that young age of 9, she's willing to put in the work and the time to accomplish something, and that's just going to carry over for the rest of her life, all right? The same thing with the chin-up. It might take you months, it might take you years to get it, but once you get that, you'll know that all that work you put in, all the hard work, you're going to be able to go to bed at night being proud of yourself for doing that, all right? Next thing, candidate fitness assessment. I took a look at it. An old client of mine came in here. I mean, I haven't seen this kid. He's probably a junior in high school now. I saw him when he was in like 4th or 5th grade. He's literally twice his height, still a skinny dude, endurance runner, across the board. We look at this candidate fitness assessment. We could check the box on the mile, right? We're close on the push-up. We're close on the sit-up. Close on the pull-up. But one thing that might be tough is this shuttle run. Basically what it is, you have to run 10 yards out, 10 yards back, 10 yards out, 10 yards back. You got to do that in 7.5 seconds to like 8.2 seconds. That's a tough one for an endurance guy. All of these events in the candidate fitness assessment involve endurance, muscular endurance, or, except for one, there's a basketball throw that's a power thing, all right? But everything else is all about endurance. So to have those fast twitch muscle fibers, we cannot forget. We cannot forget to train for strength and train for power. How do you get powerful? How do you change direction in a fast, efficient, powerful manner? We got to build strength, and we got to build single leg strength. All right. So when we prepare for a candidate fitness assessment, we got to keep strength in mind too. The stronger that I could get, the more qualities I'm going to be able to work on. The wider I make my skill set, my bag of tricks expand, then I could stack more stuff in there. I could get more out of my explosive training if I have a higher level of strength. I don't want to put on tons of muscle mass. I want to keep my body relatively the same. If I already got my boxes checked on these endurance events like the mile, I could run maybe once a week and still hit my mark, right? Maybe you run twice a week. Maybe you run some hills one day, because that'll build some strength and some lower body mass. But when it comes down to it, we cannot neglect the power stuff. That they're going to test for it, we got to be able to accomplish these things. So you got to figure out where you are, where your strengths are. If you're a guy or a girl that's great at the power stuff but stinks at the endurance, you need to put in the road work to get that mile time down. You need to put in the reps with the push-ups, the sit-ups and all that. You got to put in the endurance work. And vice versa, like I said initially, right? If you're an endurance-based guy, you got to kind of be a little bit of a jack of all trades when you prepare for this candidate fitness assessment, all right? It's a little bit wild and it's a little bit funky. You look at some of this stuff, man. You got to be able to run a mile in a fast time. You got to be able to throw a basketball pretty far for a kid, right? You got to be able to hit a high number of pull-ups, and you got to be able to hit a shuttle run, man. You got to be able to decelerate and accelerate fast and efficiently, all right? You don't get that when you're just pounding the pavement, running 3-4 miles. You got to work on explosive starts, right? And that's what we're going to be trying to do here moving forward with this youngster. Once I get back in touch, I just got his kid's test results back last night. I'll be getting back to him and telling him where I see some gaps, right? You got to assess, number one, find your gaps, then give yourself enough time to make improvement, right? 6 to 10 weeks is probably ideal. All right, lastly, my boy, talked to him last week. I said, hey, man, UFC fight's going on. Who you got? He said, well, I'm going to pick Stipe, but I'm always wrong. And guess what? He was wrong once again. Francis Ngannou, the man, crazy story this guy has, ends up winning the heavyweight title. And I got to say, when I was looking at him, I'm not claiming to be some sort of oracle, but sometimes when you look at somebody, you see something different. And you see it with fighters. You look at their face sometimes and you're just like, man, he looks different. He looks a little bit older. You see his body's a little bit softer. Oh, he's 20-something pounds lighter than he was before. What's going on here? Did he lose a little bit of that power? Did he lose a little bit of that muscle mass? There's a few red flags here that just opened up, and I was just thinking to myself, I mean, I watched Stipe versus Ngannou the first time. Ngannou's performance was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to watch it because he got totally gassed. After the first round, he was totally wiped out. And you watch that fight, and then you're like, dude, there's no way that guy is going to be able to beat him. But he did, right? He got his training in order, and he put it to him. And, you know, I was hoping to get this Q&A done before those big fights. And also, too, on that same card, who you got? Well, who's a lock? I saw a guy with the last name Nurmagomedov. It wasn't Khabib, but it must have been a relative of his. And he ended up getting a win, too. And I'm thinking, man, if you're going to put some money on the line, you might as well bet on one of those tough dudes from Dagestan, because they don't really seem to lose, man. They're different over there. And I don't even know where that is, honestly. Somewhere on the outskirts of Russia, I think. But, man, just like I was saying earlier with the NCAA wrestling, these UFC guys are on another level. And when you hear about some guys that end up taking a loss, you know, I talked about the work ethic of those wrestlers. When those wrestlers get into the UFC, they just keep grinding and grinding and grinding, and eventually they break down. Eventually, their bodies just can't take it anymore. And I think we need to have a well-rounded approach, you know, a well-rounded approach to anything that you do in life, right? Everything needs to be in balance. We need to have, you know, family, work, rest, play, all of these things. We got to keep it in line, right? And then when you look to training, you know, technique, strength, conditioning, sparring, you know, all of these things have to be in check. You don't want to do too much sparring because it might affect your overall health. You don't want to be doing too much strength work because you might put up too much mass. You don't want to be doing too much conditioning work because it might eat away at some of your muscle mass. You know what I'm saying? If you just spend your whole time working at low levels, maybe you don't get the body prepared. If you're working on technique at low levels, maybe you don't get yourself prepared for a five-minute rounds of intense training. You know, everything's just got to be in perfect balance, right? And I used a point this week with one of my strength school episodes, last podcast, number 53. If you had 4 data points, you pick 4 things in life, your 4 most important things in life, right? You have 4 data points. these data points, if you graph them, should look like a diamond. They shouldn't be looking like a kite where one data point is way out in front of all these other data points. What the whole point of all this is that you got to find a certain balance in life. I'm learning this in the gym now as I'm in my 30s, and we're starting to approach that, that point in my life where my muscle mass is going to start decreasing at a higher rate than it did 5 or 10 years ago, right? So I got to have a certain amount of balance in that in the weight room. In life as a somewhat new parent now, as my daughter's 3 years old, I have a young child. We got to find the right balance between work and family, friends, recreation, and then also that me time, right? We got to have the perfect balance in the training if you're getting ready for the Kinit fitness assessment and everything in life, right? It comes down to balance. Always has and probably always will be, all right? And lastly here, guys, all of this stuff, all of this content, I'm making an effort to put out more stuff. It is on YouTube, man. I got a YouTube page. Just search me, Chris Flook, right? I want to get my subscribers up, so like and subscribe to that, please. All of these videos are going to go straight to YouTube. All of these videos, all the audio goes right to Apple Podcast. We got Google Podcast. We have Stitcher. It gets immediately uploaded to those areas. I do Facebook Live once or twice a week. Find Chris Flook on Facebook. The whole goal of this stuff, man, is we're trying to find a good, well-rounded approach to life, like I was just saying, man. We're talking about fitness. We're talking about things that I think are going to help the mind and help the body, and to try to just create a better life for everybody that comes into contact with me here at the gym or through these podcasts, all right? This is it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you have some more questions, ask me, man. Keep them coming. Every month, at the end of each month, I am going to run through this Q&A. I missed a few this month. Eventually, I'm going to try to get this going, twice a month, and then maybe once a week, we get these things going where people ask questions, and I answer them, all right? Or at least I give my opinion on them. It might not be the best answer ever, but I will try my best to help each and every one of you out, man. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. It's April Fool's. Peace, everybody.